Hey, good afternoon and welcome into this Wednesday and Helping Seniors of Brevard. I'm John Harper, and right now let's get to the show and let me introduce to you the host of the show and the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Here's Kerry Fink.
Hey, thank you, John Harper. It's always a pleasure to be here on Wednesday around lunchtime, 12 noon to 1 p.m. right here on 90.3 FM, WEJF. And welcome to those of you who are joining us online at WEJF.net. And also, special hello to those who come by and join us via podcast, because we always make these available out wherever you get podcasts, any place from Apple iTunes to now YouTube has podcasts. It just keeps going. So thank you for joining us. On behalf of Joe Steckler, our president and founder, welcome to Helping Seniors Radio. And here we are. It is Wednesday. I think you're going to enjoy the radio show today because there's nothing but good in here for you as we talk about that. You're going to enjoy the show because we have two of the greatest people on the planet who are joining us in the studio today for the radio show. In fact, let me go ahead and say their names, but then I want to brag on them for a minute. One is longtime friend, and I do mean longtime friend of the Helping Seniors organization, Dr. Lee Sheldon, noted area periodontist with Dr. Sheldon Furtado and Solid Bite Dental. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Kerry, and how are you?
I am well. And the other person that is so absolutely vitally important to everything we try to accomplish in helping seniors. In fact, she's having to find a minute in between managing all the calls that come in on that senior information helpline, which is that free call to 321-473-7770 that we've now operated going into our 12th year here in Brevard County, is none other than Nancy Deardorff, who's our operations director and comes to us with 33 years registered nurse experience. How are you today, Nancy?
I'm well, Kerry. Good afternoon.
Yes, thank you. And I wanted to go back and explain the significance of this show, because I was going back through the historical records of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Now, folks, if you're fairly new to this, you got to understand Joe Steckler, our president and founder, he was the guy that actually got everything going with Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation. He built those daycare centers throughout Brevard County that to this day are still named after him, Joe's Clubs. And both Dr. Sheldon and Nancy Deardorff were instrumental because they served on his board and helped him get all that done. And you guys were both board members as Joe was getting Helping Seniors underway. So that does seem like a little ways back, right?
Just a little ways. It wasn't that long ago, was it, Nancy?
No, 2011. I might have had a few less silver hairs then.
Well, it's all good. And I was literally going back through historical records, and Dr. Sheldon, I know you know this because you're the guy who actually got Joe started on television back in the days when you were doing your own show. But if you remember, Joe reciprocated, and you actually did the very first two TV shows ever under the Helping Seniors TV label. You did one called The Ultimate Mouth Manual, which I don't know, you probably must be up to like revision 15 or something by now with that.
I've been owing a revision on that for at least 3 years now.
Okay. But
it's still current, it still works.
Yeah, I see it when I come into your dental office. You've got that, and it's a great resource to see the Ultimate Mouth Manual.
And I'll tell you, people still ask me for my autograph, and that's all I need.
Yeah, there you go. But listen, so you did the first two shows with Joe, Dr. Sheldon, but then I'm looking back in the records, and literally shows 3 and 4 were shows that you and Nancy were Joe's guests on. Show number 3 was all about helping seniors in Brevard. And show number 4 was weight control. And I thought this kind of amusing because here we are so many years later, and the topic that we're going to cover today is not about weight control, but it is actually kind of related because we're going to spend some time talking about nutrition, right? And in fact, Dr. Sheldon, you have an article coming up called What's the Best Aisle at the Supermarket? And I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to set this up, get out of the way. You guys who are both really experts, because I know, Dr. Sheldon, we've done so many shows where you've talked about how good mouth health is really helping, as study after study tends to show, your overall health. and vice versa. And then Nancy, with your background and experience as a registered nurse, you understand probably better than most of us how important nutrition is. So where would you guys like to jump into this conversation? Let's do something that's going to help all of us feel better and live better by just knowing how to eat better, I guess.
Well, let me start. First of all, it's a thrill to be back with you, Nancy. Nancy and I had a good time together, and we did. I didn't remember we did 2 shows in a row, but now I do. And she and I had, Nancy, you and I had done some other shows as well. So when you got back involved in helping seniors, I said, gee, Nancy, we got to go back on the air together. And,
yes, and I agree.
Here we are.
Yes, we make a good team. It's so good to be back on the air with you.
Thank you. You know, my big deal here is when I'm seeing patients, and we're seeing patients with chronic degenerative disease, and Nancy that's something that she's treated for many, many years as well, or she's seen patients with chronic degenerative disease, particularly people who are in the later years of life. And part of what occurs in my office or with our patients is they have chronic degenerative disease and don't think about that in terms of gum disease or periodontal disease. Yet whether we look at heart disease or arthritis or Alzheimer's or any of these chronic diseases that tend to creep up on us as we get older and older, there is a big nutritional component to that. We kind of let that go aside. And Nancy, maybe you can comment a little bit on this, because we kind of concentrate on drugs. Let's see what we can do to mitigate the problem by taking a medication, but maybe we don't look as carefully as we should, maybe at the source of the disease, but you know that better than I do. What's your experience been?
Well, you know, there's a movement going on, and the movement is called food as medicine, using food as medicine. And I want to make it clear, food is not a substitution for medicine. So it doesn't mean replacing your medicine with food, but looking at food as a type of medicine. And it really kind of is all about you are what you eat, that old adage. And our dietary... That
was Adele Davis in the 1960s.
Absolutely. And it still holds true. You are what you eat, garbage in, garbage out. And food as medicine basically is, you know, our dietary habits influence disease risk. Some foods may trigger certain chronic health conditions, while other foods can offer medicinal qualities or protective qualities for folks. So there certainly are diseases and chronic health conditions out there that can't be solved, cured, or mitigated by food alone. But there are also chronic health conditions that can be greatly helped, and in some cases, reversed based on how we eat and our nutrition.
I remember there was a doctor named Matthias Rath, and Nancy, I don't think you and I have discussed Matthias Rath, but he was one of the first to talk about reversal of heart disease with using nutrition alone, and using some supplements as well. So we've got that, but I agree with you totally that we've got to look at medications, certainly to stem the tide, if not to reverse the condition. But the origin of it, I don't know. Isn't a lot of it have to do with processed foods? We know there are other countries where people are a lot healthier and they have a lot less chronic degenerative disease than we do in the U.S.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, in fact, Western diets are very high in processed foods. And we tend to eat, Western diets tend to be low in whole foods, like fresh produce. And we typically, as a whole, are deficient in vitamin and minerals that come from proper eating. And insufficient intake, for instance, of vitamin C, vitamin D, a lot of folks are deficient in vitamin D, folate. Those things can negatively impact heart health, immune function, and increase risk for certain cancers, to be honest with you. And fruits such that are high in fruits and vegetables and beans and whole grains, these kind of diets contain antioxidants, which actually protect cells from damage. And studies have demonstrated that people with diets rich in what they call polyphenol antioxidants have lower rates of depression, lower rates of diabetes, type 2, dementia, and heart disease. And in fact, talking about superfoods and talking about proper diets, one of the diets that comes to mind that a lot of people have heard about is the Mediterranean diet. It tends to be a very healthy way of eating. And I'm sure, Dr. Sheldon, you've heard of the blue zones in the world?
Absolutely. I've heard of blue zones.
Yeah,
of course.
the blue zones. These are zones in the world where people tend to live the longest and healthiest, meaning, what's the use of living to 100 if you're unhealthy? But they live long and healthy lives. And these are Kerry, Greece, Sardinia, Okinawa, Japan, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and believe it or not, Loma Linda, California. And the reason they connect Loma Linda is there's a heavy Seventh-day Adventist population, and they tend to be plant-based folks. So
you and I was not planning on talking about blue zones, but let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Kerry, I know you're just sitting down here just saying I want to ask some questions, but okay. Let's talk about blue zones, because in terms of blue zones, you're right. It was healthy diets in many of those areas. But what was the other thing about blue zones? Do you remember?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
It was socialization.
It was socialization, but also a third thing, Dr. Sheldon, and that is physical activity. Because people, like in Sardinia, you have 80-year-old people that are still farming and shepherding and doing manual labor. So it's not solely the food intake, it's also lifestyle. And of course, in the West,
they ain't retired. The whole idea is, I'm going to be 65 years old, I can retire. Come on. That is, I'm sure it's other Western countries, but certainly the United States. At 65, I get Medicare or whatever. Now it's 67, whatever it is. It's the goal of retirement. It's a whole lot of things. But let's talk about the nutritional part of it, because eventually we're going to get to the supermarket part of it, but let's talk about the nutritional part of it. But it was different diets in different places. You did say a vegetarian diet in the Seventh-day Adventist Seventh-day Adventist group, and that was in Loma Linda. I forget what the other ones were. Do you remember what the other commonalities were?
In the blue zones?
Yeah.
Basically, a diet that was high in whole grains, good proteins, good fats, and a lot of fruits and vegetables.
Okay, so let's define good fats. Okay.
Yes.
Because fat is fat, but is fat really fat? So let's define good fats.
Sure. You want to go, or you want me to go?
No, go. You start.
Right.
These are your questions. I'm going to let you go, and then I'm going to comment on them. By the way, before we get off vitamin D, vitamin D, you mentioned vitamin D.
Yeah.
All right. Do you know, we do dental implants here, and I've been doing dental implants almost my entire career. We always tell people don't smoke, because of stabilization of the blood clot after we put an implant in. We need the blood clot to form, and the heat will disturb the blood clot. Do you know that twice as many dental implant failures occur in the presence of inadequate vitamin D than in the presence of smoking? I did not know that.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I think, if people haven't been, they really should go get their labs done, because more people than realize are deficient in vitamin D in some way. But as far as fats go, I'm going to give you the simple explanation that I got way back in nursing school. And because one of the things that Dr. Sheldon, you and I want to do on this program is make nutrition simple for people. We don't want to get so complicated. We talked about blue zones and polyphenol antioxidants and all that. But let's get to the real basics. So we need fat. Good fats are very, very good for us. And we need fat in our diet. So what's the difference between a good fat and a bad fat? Well, simply put, as per my nursing school instructor, bad fats are solid at room temperature. What's solid at room temperature? Butter, bacon fat goes solid at room temperature. Your fats attached to beef and pork, and a lot of meat products. Good fats stay liquid at room temperature. Now that doesn't mean every liquid fat or oil is good for you, But basically,
no, there's some pretty lousy oils now. There's
there
some
really
oils
are.
when you went to nursing school and when I went to dental school, and you're much younger than I am, where
I don't know, not that much.
Well, we were talking about corn oil at that time and how good it was, and canola oil and how good it was. Yeah, we're not really there anymore. That part has changed.
Right.
So, to me, if we're talking about good fats, at this point in my life, and I know I'm contradicting you, it is something that comes in the natural state. And so I may disagree with you with regard to beef. And whether we talk of bacon, I won't disagree with primarily because of all the other things that they're in bacon, the way it's processed. But beef, I'm not sure that that's the way it is anymore.
Well, but what I'm talking about is just eating a lot of fat. I mean, if somebody has high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and again, everything we're talking about is very individual to a person, what chronic health conditions they're facing. For instance, people may have gluten intolerance. People may have diabetes. So we're talking in general here. So if you're trying to eat healthier fats, you can't really go wrong with olive oil. Olive oil, peanut oil, two of the best oils that you can cook with. Yes, I like meat. I'm a meat eater, and I eat meat. But I try to eat the leaner cuts of meat, and I don't chew on the fat that's surrounding the meat. I leave that on my plate. Nor do I give it to my dogs. By the way. My vet once told me, when I said, can I give my pups table scraps? They said, limited, but don't give them anything that you wouldn't eat yourself. So I don't, give them a big chunk of fat. So that's what I mean. We consume too much fat. So it's not just about the good fats and the bad fats. It's about a balance.
Well, look at the processed fats. Look at the processed fats
and
that
processed.
You'll get in the freezer and what you're going to get in a box. Okay?
Right.
We can agree with. If it's in a freezer, maybe okay, but it's been processed. There's a whole bunch of things that have been done to make it into whatever that TV dinner is called now.
Absolutely.
Or
and basically,
the stuff that's in a box and that stuff, and it sits on the shelf for month after month after month. That can't be good.
It can't be good. And basically, your good fats, you can kind of break those down into two categories, generally speaking, monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated. Some examples of your monounsaturated fats, and to your point, Dr. Sheldon, in the natural state, nuts contain really, really good fat. Vegetable oil, as I said, such as olive oil. Peanut butter, but you got to be aware of peanut butter is also a lot of sugar added. Almond butter, avocado. Very, very good source of monounsaturated fat. And then your polyunsaturated fats are things like fatty fish such as salmon, herring, sardines, trout, but also things like walnuts, flaxseed, chia seeds, and then back to oils, canola oil. So those are, obviously, we have to be careful about processed food because a lot of processed foods that we eat are processed. We're talking about highly processed foods that are bad for you. Yogurt.
So let's talk about the supermarket, okay?
Let's talk about the supermarket.
Let's talk about the supermarket. So, the article that I wrote for Helping Seniors for April, is that when it gets published? Kerry, is that when it's coming out?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. There was an old adage that I got years ago that, what's the best aisle in the supermarket? And the answer is no aisle in the supermarket. You shop in the outside, the periphery of the supermarket. Anything in the middle is in a can or a box that's processed. Anything on the outside is fresh. That was the basics when it came down to, where do you shop in the supermarket? And so I was at Publix this morning. So where did I go? I was
perimeter.
And this wasn't because I'm such a good boy, but yes, I did. I went around the outside. As a matter of fact, I'm making some barbecue chicken tonight, and the food, you can have good stuff, and I do use bottled barbecue sauce. But I was standing in the aisle, and I was going to get some canned pineapple. And I said, "No, I've got some oranges at home. I'm going to put that in instead." And all I did was take some Makoto's dressing, some Four Rivers barbecue sauce, and I'm putting it in the oven on time bake. It's going in at 4:15. It'll be ready at 5:15, and then I'm going to eat it. It's pretty simple.
Yes. Yeah. And if you do shop in an aisle, because people, there's some people, we got to talk about, the cost of groceries and the ability for people to cook. Some people don't cook fancy or they're not creative. So there are certain things in the aisles that can be beneficial, that can
what
be
do you like?
Things like brown rice.
Okay.
Brown rice, whole grain pasta can be good for you, and it's filling. So and it's reasonably priced. It can stretch dishes, stews and things. It can, if you're tight and meat's expensive, it can stretch certain dishes to go further to feed a larger crowd, if you will, and are still good for you. Generally, if you're going to eat things like grains, and there's a thing we learned in nursing school also about beige food, or beige food. Some people would call it yellow or white bread. You want to avoid beige food. So brown rice certainly is healthier than white rice. Whole grain pasta is certainly healthier than regular boxed pasta.
You want a story on pasta?
I do, because I love pasta.
We got to go to a break. How much time we have?
Well, I was going to tell you guys, this is a fascinating conversation. We're talking with Dr. Lee Sheldon, noted area periodontist and kind of an expert himself at nutrition, and then also Nancy Deardorff, our operations director, who is also 33 years registered nurse experience. And as you were just hearing, talking a lot about healthy ways that we could eat. We're going to continue with the second half of this show coming up here.
And we're going to get a pasta story after the break, so stay with us.
So that's why you got to stay right here.
And it's good to hear that music, signifying the second half of our program, Helping Seniors of Brevard, is ready to get underway. And let's do just that as we introduce once again the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard and the host of our show. Here's Kerry Fink.
Oh, thank you, John Harper. It's good to be back on the second half of today's Helping Seniors radio show, where we get together lunchtime around the radio. And I jokingly was going to say it's half pasta the hour, because if you were listening in the beginning, the first half, we've been having a really good discussion between a couple of people who have been longtime friends of the Helping Seniors organization. I'm talking about none other than Dr. Lee Sheldon, a noted area periodontist with Dr. Sheldon Furtado Solid Bite, and Nancy Deardorff, who is our very own operations director, who also has 33 years registered nurse experience. And I've kind of really enjoyed just sitting here listening to the conversation, because you guys have been talking about, and I love this, Dr. Sheldon, when you said, what's the best aisle in the grocery store, and your answer was really interesting. I was going to guess, we should go down the this aisle or that aisle, and you said really it's no aisle, because you want to get to all the fresh stuff that's around the edge of the store. Am I saying that right?
Exactly right. There are, Nancy and I aren't going to agree on everything today. I can see that. We've already had a little bit of a conflict, but that's okay. We're going to come up with some unified recommendations by the end of this show, right, Nancy?
Absolutely.
All right, good. So you want to hear the pasta story?
I want to hear the pasta story.
As a matter of fact, it was so neat, because I said, we'll go to the pasta story right after the break, and Jim went to the break. I felt like the host of the show. That's great. Sorry, Kerry.
That's all good.
So I have what would be called I'm going to say gluten sensitivity, but I don't think it really is. Okay, so here's what happens. My daughter used to work in the office. Now she works from outside. She lives an hour away, and she still does the same thing for us. She does typing, transcription, and does some of the marketing in the office. So, but she used to laugh at me, because every time I would eat a cookie, I would cough. So we knew I had some kind of a sensitivity, because I coughed every time I had a cookie. Well, the same thing happened with pasta. Every time I eat pasta, and I love pasta, I would cough. And so I ended up getting the chickpea pasta. They make chickpea in the pasta aisle. They have pastas that are made out of other things. They're made out of rice flour. They're made out of spelt flour. They're made out of chickpeas.
And chickpeas, by the way, superfood.
Yeah, it is. So I was doing that for a long time, but it's still not exactly pasta. So, then there was a clue to me, because when I went to Europe, I found out I was able to eat bread in France, and I wasn't able to eat bread here. So there were certain things, and then I read some articles and talked about how the wheat is processed and how it's made. And
Dr. Sheldon, I can't believe you're saying this, because I have a friend that has celiac disease. She can't eat bread over here, and we traveled to Italy years ago. She ate bread galore with no problem, because it's how we process our wheat.
Exactly right. Yep. So, and it's the way it's grown, and it's grown for stability, and it's grown for everything other than health. We get a bigger crop and all this other stuff. United States food is how shall I say it? Prostituted? Is that allowable on this show? Well, I just said it anyway.
Adulterated, however you want to put it. I mean, there's reasons for that. We do feed the world, but yeah. For sure.
All right. So I saw a pasta that was made out of Italian wheat. I got it. I ate it. No problem at all.
Isn't that wonderful?
And I bought it at Publix. So
really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
You say whole grains. It's good. It's right. Unfortunately, the grains that we have in the United States may not be that good, as demonstrated by your friend's experience and my experience.
I couldn't agree more. And, you promised some solutions and a unified front at the end of the show. And one of my goals for people that are listening is to address the best way to eat with what's available. The best way to eat if you don't have a lot of money to spare. The best way to eat if you need to feed a big family and you don't have, and the budget's tight. So it's about making the best selections you can with what's available that you can afford. So brown rice certainly is better than white rice. Whole grain pasta certainly is better. But obviously what you're saying, that Italian pasta, I have no doubt, because I saw it firsthand in Italy. And the same goes true with their beef, Dr. Sheldon. They don't pump up their meat with antibiotics and hormones, and their meat is, to me, just as delicious. But they just don't process the food. But a big concern of mine is, how do we talk to people that may be listening to the show about selecting the best they can within their means that's available in this area?
That may be. I'm good, but I would take a different tack. I'd say, let's not gear it just to the people to find the best way of doing it. There are those people who listen to this who have the means and can buy better food. Sure. And if you're going to do that, you're best off going to the local farmer. That's the best food you can get.
No question. Absolutely. For fruits, vegetables, honey, whatever you can get. Absolutely.
Even meat. Or you can be very selective. I have my favorite butcher shop. I know that food is great. And I pay for it. I understand that. So
yes.
we're gonna approach it a little bit differently, and that's based on resources. And Nancy, you happen to service a clientele, particularly those people who call helping seniors who don't have a lot of money, and I understand that.
Right. And I think one of the biggest things that I wanted to talk about is the lack of fresh fruits and vegetables in American diets. We're highly lacking in that. And so, the best way to give yourself a nutritional boost is to add more fruits and vegetables into your diet. And farmers market is one of the most economical ways you can do that. And also being creative in how you add vegetables. There are a lot of fruits and vegetables out there that really aren't overly expensive. You've got apples and pears, carrots, broccoli, superfood, berries, superfood, butternut squash, so versatile, tomatoes. And then, a lot of people, if you're like me, I'm very guilty of letting fresh produce kind of go wilty in the refrigerator, right? And, not giving up on those vegetables. I can't tell you how many times I've made a meal with tomatoes that I wouldn't really necessarily want to slice up and eat fresh, but I'll cook them. Even stone fruit you can cook. If you got a peach that's on its way out but still good, but you don't quite want to eat it fresh, grilling them up is absolutely delicious. Cooking your carrots, and then being creative of adding particularly vegetables to things like maybe shred it and add it to sauces or stews or soups or meatloaf. So, finding a economical and sneaky way, particularly if you're feeding children, to get vegetables into dishes. You don't have to sit down to a big whole pile of cooked carrots or a big whole pile of broccoli to get your fruits and vegetables in.
But if you take a look, if we're talking about kids, even if we're talking about older adults, it's so much easier to go into the processed food section and just say, I'll get this and I'll warm it up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But then you keep on eating and eating.
Yeah. Canned fruit, high in fructose. It can cause spikes in blood sugar. Then you've got your canned vegetables, which are high in sodium. So, it's really about making the smartest choices you can.
I'll tell you what's helped me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's helped me. Because, and I wrote it in the article. An apple, you mentioned apple before. An apple, if I start munching, and by the way, I can eat a ton of nuts, and I'm getting good nuts, so yes. I can eat them. As soon as I find myself doing that, I cut up an apple, and instantly my appetite is satisfied, and I won't eat any more.
Yeah,
that's a fresh apple. Okay, so that's there. It has the enzymes. It's good, and so all of us, I think, have that thermostat that turns off when we eat the right food.
Correct.
So apple is my signal. What's your signal?
Apple works for me as well, and I think it's a variety of foods, but one of the things that satiates me the most, but also you can say I get hungry afterwards pretty quickly, is soup. Soup is very filling to me. Yeah. A good homemade soup, you can pack it full of vegetables and nutrition, and soup is very filling to me. Now, some people might find, as do I, a couple hours later I might be hungry. So you might have to have something to accompany that soup. But that's one of the most economical ways to get a lot of nutrients into your body.
So are there a lot of people who call you who say, I'm afraid to cook, I don't know how to cook, what do I do? I mean, there's got to be that, because, I'm coming up with, in the article with my recipe, with my article, go to allrecipes.com, type in quick and easy, and you'll learn how to cook in 20 minutes. You'll have a meal. So
yes.
How often does somebody say, well, I'd rather get the packaged food because it's easier for me?
Oh, absolutely. They rely on Meals on Wheels, or some folks that call me go to food pantries, but they don't necessarily know what to do with those foods, and they don't know how to pick out the best foods for what's available. And there's lots of things you can do, but, the way we eat is highly influenced by how we grew up eating. So if you grew up and your parents fed you fast food a lot, which is happening more and more in the United States, I can't tell you how many people I've run into in my circle that just don't cook. They say, I don't know how to cook, which is foreign to me. I don't know how you can't know how to cook just by default. Cooking doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be gourmet. An egg is a superfood, super easy to make, and eggs are versatile. You can have them for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Make a good omelet. But yeah, I do get those calls, Dr. Sheldon, when people either they physically can't cook, or they can, but they just, they think of their old fashioned. A lot of folks, when they call me, they're older folks, and they grew up with a roast in the oven, a meal that takes 2 hours to prepare that mom and dad used to make. And that doesn't have to be the case.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. So everybody has it down. Go to the website, allrecipes.com, and then type in quick and easy, and you'll get a bunch of quick and easy recipes. Just try that first, and I guarantee you'll say, this tastes better. And
that's a great resource, Dr. Sheldon.
It'll be ready as quickly as the defrosted item is going to be ready.
You know what? I'm going to go to the website myself, because that's the daily struggle. I don't know about you, but the daily question with me and my spouse is, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? I know how to cook, but some of it's just deciding what are you going to eat. So I'm going to go to the website myself.
Well, it works. I mean, that works for me. And as with anything, particularly if you can't cook, if you just go to this and you try something, then you'll explore allrecipes.com, and then you might find something that takes a half an hour rather than 20 minutes. I mean, you'll experiment with it, but you just gotta have to use to turning on the oven or putting a frying pan on the stove and just using it. It's certainly a lot better than anything you're going to get in a package. Now, by the way,
absolutely, yeah.
You talked about. I don't eliminate the middle of the store entirely, because that's where I get my beans. I don't want to soak beans,
yes,
beans, all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to get my beans.
Superfood, everyone who's listening, beans, yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got digestive problems and you're taking laxatives all the time, my God, open up a can of beans, and it's cheap.
Well, and I'll tell you, talking about those blue zones like Sardinia, they have a lot of beans, a lot of dishes made with beans. And that's another commonality that a lot of those places have, a lot of legumes.
It's funny that there are commonalities. By the way, if you do want to do some reading, I agree. Just read Blue Zones. You may say, I can never do that, but it'll certainly give you some inspiration. If you're looking at, all of us have different opinions on nutrition. All of us have gotten different kinds of training. There's different literature. But when it comes right down to it, who is the person who lives the longest and is vital towards the end of his or her life? And that's what the Blue Zones book is all about. And you'll start to get some inspiration. You'll find some commonalities. You'll find differences as well. But certainly when you and I and everybody is staring at their phone or staring at something other than getting out there and socializing and being productive and doing something to help other people, and that's not nutrition, all of those things certainly take you out of your body and give you a purpose in life and bring you to another place.
Well, you got it. Everything's connected.
Yeah. Cooking can be a purpose too.
Absolutely.
So if you're saying, all right, I'm bored and I keep on watching TV, or I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I'm staring at my phone all the time, man, just to turn on the stove and see that you put something in there with a little bit of salt and pepper, and you take it out and you say, man, that tastes pretty good. I wonder what would happen if I had a little bit of garlic powder next time.
And I think people need to be afraid not to make a mistake. So you cook and something comes out a flop, okay, you tried, It's better than not trying. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know about you. I burned some food.
I burned some food. I'm generally a pretty good cook. My problem is what to cook. I try not to repeat myself too often, but, talking about repeating myself, one of the things I wanted to let our listeners know is, how do you eat healthy and simple? You listen to this radio show, it's over, and you go, okay, what did they talk about? Keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. Eat in color. Dr. Sheldon, would you agree with that?
Right. Eat in color is right.
Yes.
It's true. I mean, if you have multiple colors, and of course a lot of that is coming from fruits and vegetables, you're getting different nutrients in each of those colors. If you take a look you see the supplements that are advertised on TV, and you and I, you're going to put a question about multivitamins. You notice the supplements that are being advertised most now are fruits and vegetables in a capsule.
Yes. And also what I want to say about vitamins and supplements, sometimes it's prescribed and you need it. I myself take a daily vitamin. I myself take a vitamin D because I got tested and I was deficient. So they certainly have their place. But for people who go out and load up on vitamins and minerals from the shelf, there's some people that just spend a lot of money, and basically what you end up with in many cases is very expensive urine.
Yeah. I think, if you're going to your physician can do so many more tests now, nutritional tests, to give you an idea as to what's working and what's not. By the way, there's some that you can't. For example, magnesium, very, very difficult to test for. So if you're getting cramps, if you're, by the way, this comes from a dentist, and any advice that we give here is just our opinion only. Check with your physician for any health decisions you make, and not us. But but magnesium is one where there's a big deficiency in the United States due to the soil.
Yeah.
And so almost all of us need magnesium supplements. Can you take a magnesium blood test? Sure you can. Does it show anything? No, it doesn't. There are more sophisticated ways you need to check magnesium. And I wrote an article in Florida Today years ago about magnesium, and and what happened after I wrote that article in Florida Today is for a few days you couldn't buy magnesium any place in Brevard County. I didn't.
You were. That's a compliment. You were listened to.
That's right. I can't find magnesium. I can't find it. So, but if you're constipated, milk of magnesia is magnesium. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
there are other forms of magnesium. Some people do better with one form. Some people do better with another form. But again, constipation might mean, and check with your doctor first, not enough magnesium, and check with your doctor and see whether it's okay if you take magnesium or not.
Right. And or lack of fiber. Which
That's
is
right.
important too. We didn't talk about fiber. Humans, we can't digest fiber, but what fiber does for us is that it contributes to digestive health. It helps us with elimination. It helps promote healthy gut bacteria. A lot of our immune system lies in our gut. That's why you see these advertisements for probiotics and all these. Basically it's a balance. It's a balance between, and again, I'm a meat eater. So we talked about Loma Linda, California, and the vegetable-based diet. I'm all for it if you can do it. I love meat. I love lamb is one of my favorite things to eat, and I eat it. But it's all about balance. So you need a healthy balance between your proteins, good carbohydrates. We didn't even talk about carbohydrates, what good carbohydrates are, because you need them for energy, good fats, and fiber, as well as vitamins and minerals. And
if you go around the outside of the store, you're going to get fiber.
You absolutely are correct, yes.
If you're going to go around the other side of the store, chances are you're going to find enough fats out there.
I feel sorry for anybody who doesn't like broccoli. I think President Bush Sr. Didn't like broccoli. I think it was him, because broccoli is one of the healthiest foods, a cruciferous vegetable. It's full of fiber. It's full of vitamins and minerals, and it's cheap. Yeah. It's really relatively cheap. But that's what I like your idea of that website that people can look up, because I have no doubt, knowing you, Dr. Sheldon, not only is it filled with recipes, but recipes using really, really good choices of foods and herbs and spices. And spices we didn't talk about. How about turmeric?
Go ahead. Yeah. How about turmeric? How about turmeric in terms of regulating blood flow? How about turmeric in terms of regulating infection or reducing the possibility of infection? There are a lot of areas you can go to look at these things. I'll tell you though, there are times when we just get stuck, and there are times when we say, "All right, I want to order out." And listen, I mean, I had a cookie today. I mean, it is that I'm totally pristine.
Don't feel guilty. I love potato chips. Potato chips are my junk food go-to. I love them.
Okay. Yeah, and once you start it, can you close the bag, or do you
I
really
force myself, yes, but it's difficult.
That's one of those things where you keep on eating because there's no nutritional value at all.
None, zero.
That's why apples.
But they sure taste good. They sure taste good with a sandwich.
Oh, do they ever?
I tell you, the more we deny ourselves certain little cheats, the more you're going to crave that which you're denied. So I do eat ice cream. I do eat potato chips. I eat junk food, but it's few and far between, and I don't overdo it. I think that's a big thing.
But you've never had a weight problem?
I haven't, and I have to say I'm very lucky. Weight problem doesn't run in my family, so I'm blessed in that area. And I do have a friend with a food addiction, and I feel bad because food addiction is one of those things where we have to eat to live. So people with a food addiction, or who abuse food, because of emotions or loneliness or boredom. It's a problem because with a lot of addictions, alcohol, drugs, you abstain from that addiction to get and stay in what they call sobriety. With food, you have to indulge in your addiction to live. So it's very difficult.
True.
Yeah.
And that becomes a non-nutrient because emotions is a big part of eating.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea of going out and helping somebody else, or going out into society, or finding a club to join, or doing something where you're getting out of your kitchen, or getting out of your apartment, or getting out of your home, is probably as important as choosing the right food, because then it gives you an opportunity of helping others. As soon as you help others, your emotions go up, your tone level goes up, you feel better.
I absolutely agree. And that's a whole other show we could do, because you probably read the study on happiness, and the people who live longer, healthier, in relationship to the happiness study, was not just related to food. It was related to relationships with other people. And I don't just mean, casual, like neighbors down the street, but close bonds with people and socialization had a lot to do with, and helping people and staying involved.
And that has to be some of the calls you receive as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that is a second show, Kerry. What do you think?
I think we're on the right track with all of it. It's one of the reasons why we're all so passionate about the work we do in the Helping Seniors organization anyway, is because once you get outside of yourself, you're making a difference. So we've been talking with Dr. Lee Sheldon, noted area periodontist, Doctors Sheldon and Furtado, PLLC, and Solid Bite, and also Nancy Deardorff, our operations director with Helping Seniors of Brevard. Thank you, guys. It's a fascinating show, and I love hearing about some practical ways that you can put this into application and not have it take a whole lot more time than just throwing something in a microwave. So again, if you're new to the show, you can pick up all these programs at helpingseniors.brevard.org, because we make sure they're available there. Maybe you missed part of the show, or you want to share something with somebody. You can also pick it up as a podcast wherever you get podcasts. We'll have it out there in a day or so. And then also don't forget, we have a Facebook page, Helping Seniors of Brevard. We have a YouTube channel, Helping Seniors of Brevard. Dr. Sheldon, you've done some great TV programs there on a lot of different subjects, not only about dentistry and periodontics, but also on nutrition, because it is a passion of yours. And the same with you, Nancy. There's a lot of great information, a lot of programs there. So I want to thank you guys for being part of the Helping Seniors radio show today. I want to thank you, listener, for joining us on today's show. And just real quickly, before we go out, I'm going to do our little quote commercial, because as a nonprofit, we can't do what we do without your help. And so the 7th annual Helping Seniors car raffle is now underway. And Dr. Sheldon, you have tickets there at your office. People can go by Dr. Sheldon's office there on Sarno Road, and he's got tickets in the office and can get you set up so that you might win a brand new car on October 7th, 2023 at the American Muscle Car Museum. And Nancy, ticket sales, they can also call you for tickets, right?
Yes, absolutely. They can give me a holler at our senior information line at 321-473-7770. It is considered a donation, and I can process a secure credit card payment over the phone. Also, I want to let folks know that tickets are also available at all Boniface Hires dealerships.
Yes. So what we always wind up saying is you got to be in it to win it, because you could be taking home a brand new car on October 7th for the low price, if you will, of a $25 donation. It could happen to you. And you would get your choice of a Dodge Challenger, a Chevrolet Camaro, like our winner took last year, a Kia Sportage, or a Mazda Miata convertible, or even this year, because AJ's adding a Mitsubishi dealership, you could choose a Mitsubishi Outlander. So the choice is going to be yours when you win the 7th annual Helping Seniors car raffle. You can find details at helpingseniorscarraffle.com. So on behalf of Joe Steckler, our president and founder, I would normally say Nancy Deardorff, our operations director, but she's here in the studio with us. Thanks, guys, for sharing. This has been a really great show to get into, and hopefully we can all be a little healthier from it. What do you say, guys?
Thank you, Kerry.
Thanks, Kerry.